So we're both professors at the University of Chicago, ground zero for rational economic thinking. With that in mind, do you remember the chaos that ensued when faculty offices had to be assigned when the business school moved into its new building?
I wrote a chapter about that in my other book, Misbehaving. We built a spiffy new building, and everyone was going to get a better office, but there was the question of who would get which one. The deans decided to conduct the equivalent of the NFL draft. Somebody would get to pick first, and they would pick their office, and then whoever was second would get to pick, and so forth. The picking order was determined in some mysterious way. You'd get an email and say, you're going to pick at 11:30 on Thursday. It took the faculty about an hour of frantic emailing to piece together what the actual order was.
So the entire activity of the organization became focused on the allocation of offices. So you're saying everybody wasn't happy with the slot that they were put into in the draft.
They did say that there were certain number of categories. Maybe there was a superstar category, and maybe it had 10 people or 20 people, but they said it would be random within that. People who were unlucky within their category were furious, even though they all understand what random means. But the most amusing thing to me was that they adopted a rule that said you may not trade offices or picks.
So they basically suspended any market-like activity that would allow people's intensity of preferences to be demonstrated, even though this is the University of Chicago and these are mostly economists doing it.
Yep. It gave me great amusement.
I love that example because it shows how even people who espouse markets and rationality, when things get too close to home, they tend to revert to other kinds of behaviors. I have a constant battle with the administration capping my class size. And one year I actually succeeded and I got them to release the cap, and maybe 200 students took my class that year and everything went great. But then the next year, when I looked at the course catalog, I realized that my class was once again limited to 50 students. So I went to the administrator and I said, why did you limit my class to 50? Everything seemed to go great last year with 200. And he said, if so many students take your class, then there's hardly any students taking the other economics professors' classes. And they were so mad that they said that we had to cap your class at 50 again. These are Chicago economists who believe deeply and religiously in the markets, but rather than offer a high enough quality class that students actually want to take it, they want to resort to interventions by a central authority, the department coordinator, to override market forces.
And that's why when we rewrote the book, and we have a chapter on climate change, we say we're not going to solve climate change with nudging. We have to have a carbon tax or cap and trade. Get the prices right. I'm still an economist. There are things that categorize as nudges. For example, automatically enrolling people into green energy or telling people how much energy they use compared to their neighbors. These get 2 or 3% effect sizes with huge sample sizes in the millions, but they're small. We quote President Obama in the book, who liked to say, better is good. If we can reduce utility consumption by 2% by adding something to the bill they get every month, which is free. And the big question, maybe this is a behavioral economics question, but it's not one for which I have an answer, is why are we as economists so unpersuasive about why we need to price carbon emissions?
That's a great question. Because literally every economist I've ever known would tell you, of course we should have a tax on carbon. This could not be more obvious. And maybe the politicians just don't do it because it's unpopular.
It is very frustrating because right now in the US, the Republicans are opposed to it because it's a tax, and the progressives are against it because they think whatever the tax was, it wouldn't be high enough And some of the tax would be paid by poor people, and they shouldn't have to pay it. These are silly arguments. Obviously, you can have a carbon tax and distribute the money in a way that is progressive, but we're united in our opposition to the only chance, really, that the planet has of survival. And I think this is the greatest failing of the economics profession ever.
We have a simple approach that could make a material impact, and yet we're completely ineffective in convincing people other than economists that that's true.
And Swedes. Sweden has the highest carbon tax, and lo and behold, emissions have gone way down and the economy is thriving. So, for once, economists are right. We don't know how to control unemployment or recessions or inflation, maybe, but we do know if we raise the price of carbon, people will emit less. Even crazy behavioral economists know that, and yet we can't convince anybody to do it.